I thought he bought a bunch and then sold them all.
He sold one.
Oh,
He sold a hoodie for like 80 grand or something stupid. And hoodies are like $1 million each
right.
for a win. But then they went like ×7 from there.
Yes,
and so
yeah,
now he's
yeah,
just
yeah.
like, I'll never sell anything.
well, if he sold it at 80 grand,
Yeah.
he basically sold it into the pump that happened in, I think it was June last
think so,
year,
yeah.
where they just kind of went mental.
That's right.
And a couple months later, you started Two Punks Capital,
That's right.
right? So what was the thesis for that?
That's right.
Two Punks Capital is your investment firm. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
In partnership with Stephen Sullivan.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. So we'll probably also cut the first minute of this because we probably shouldn't talk about his punks like that. I don't know. What's
Is that not public?
I don't think it's public.
I don't know if it's exactly how many, but I feel like I heard 8.
Well, this is a good part of any convo though, because like
Yeah.
it's interesting when you're talking about people's bags of like
Yes.
what they will and won't say. Like I mentioned to you guys before we started recording,
Yeah.
my exact kind of like my more precise numbers, but like in general,
Yeah.
I'm down to tell people I started with 5 grand in like February last year, but most people
Yeah.
just kind of know that I'm up a lot, not like
He's up big.
kind of where I'm at, you know? So it's like, yeah, I turned like 5 grand last year into what is publicly at least a couple million. You know what I mean? Like it's like you can see on chain, you can see my activity, you can see my punks, my moonbirds, whatever, right?
Yep.
Like you can see that. There's
And
other stuff.
A lot of that, I'm sure, is unrealized as well, right? Where it's just it's gone up a lot, and you're
right.
sitting there like, oh boy, what
right,
am I
yeah.
gonna do?
That's why like tax season just happened. And like, you know, I started almost a year ago helping people prep for tax season this year.
Yeah.
Of like, guys, it's gonna come.
Yep.
All this money doesn't just get to rain from the sky and you not pay taxes on it. So like I paid my tax bill last week and like I was ready for it. Like,
Right.
But I know people who were selling assets at a massive loss.
Yeah.
Into this crypto tax dump. Basically.
Did you plan some of your buys and sells at least for tax season? Like, are you holding specifically because you want to wait longer and not have to realize that income?
So I can say that I sold a CryptoPunk at 70 ETH.
Mm-hmm.
This morning, the floor is 57.
Mm-hmm.
Like a true tax season dump mixed with a Moonbird's rise, basically like asset-based
Mm-hmm.
dump. So when I saw the CryptoPunk dump incoming, and I knew I needed to find an asset that would let me pull 200K off the table, 200-ish K off the table. I was like, what's the quickest path? And it's floors, right? It's always floor NFTs.
Yeah.
So like I sold a floor doodle and a floor punk within the same like 24 hours to pull that off the table.
Just to pay tax with?
To pay taxes, yeah. Because I knew some people are like setting aside cash all year or like putting it in BlockFi, getting their 10%, like whatever.
Etc. Yeah.
Previously they were.
I think I trade.
Now they're not getting shit.
That's right. I feel like I trade well enough at this point that like I mentioned to you guys earlier, like I bought a car last weekend for my wife and I bought 3 Moonbirds for myself. My wife's car is down 10%. My 3 Moonbirds are up like $400,000. You know what I mean? Like it's like, I think.
But can you ride your Moonbird to work?
That's right. Where I'm at now is I think we're going to sell a Moonbird, buy me a car, and just, but my general thought at this point is that I can out trade tax season. Like I think a lot of people think that and they're wrong.
Yeah.
So like I have to stay aware of that as well, right? But with my current kind of assets, I was like, okay, no matter what happens, 3 weeks before tax season, I have these 30 NFTs. I can sell which ones to like guarantee that I can cover my taxes, right? It's like so you kind of know your positions. It's different than looking down and being like, oh, I have 200K in Bitcoin. I know I can sell it if I have to. It's like, well,
in an instant.
there's a punk, there's a doodle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, so it depends who you're talking to, if they have any idea what any of that is, right? But for me, yeah, it was like knowing that the assets were there. I was like, okay, I am prepared mentally for tax season, knowing that I will sell a thing as I need to.
Yes, it will be a thing, and
That's
it happened
right.
to be a liquid thing,
That's right.
which is a floor punk. So let's talk about your journey a little bit more. So you started last year with NFTs. You, I guess, weren't doing anything with them in 2020? Or?
Yeah, so I started a blockchain company in 2018.
Okay.
I tried to put wills and trusts, like documents, on chain.
Okay.
And then when you die, automate the movement down to
so
family.
it's a smart contract. And that's that.
So like what I was calling a useful smart contract at that time.
Okay.
So when I was going to like some of the VC meetups in Santa Monica, like CryptoKitties and Punks both came up in 2017, 2018 at these meetups. And I was like, that's not a useful smart contract. Like that's not interesting. They're like, yeah, but you can breed these cats.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, but like, is there a Pokemon game? Like, is there like, and they're like, no, but they look cool. And I was just like,
okay, yeah.
I was like, all right, but a will could transfer all your assets to your family when you die, right? Like I was literally just locked in on that's not useful. This is.
Yeah. And that's using the blockchain in the way that you would imagine it. I mean, there's no should be used, right? But closer to that.
Yeah. And so I was in the first wave of people that were like really intensely talking about real estate on chain, identity on chain, passports on chain, like, so wills on chain, right? Like assets on all of that there was like this whole pocket of people doing useful things. And then, you know, Nate, Alex and Jimmy and some guys at like ETH Denver 2017 were like, but what about all this? Right. So I was in a different corner of the internet basically. And sadly I wasn't on Twitter, or I would have probably joined those guys in that corner of the internet. You know what I mean? So I wasn't on Twitter or Discord. I was just like philosophically, I found crypto. I understood it through like Reddit and like,
wow. Okay.
So my little brother used it 2013 for weed only. He's like, it's weed money. That's it. And I'm like, but what else? And he's like, no. It's weed money. That's it. I was like, well, I guess I'm not interested. It's 2013. And I was like, I'm not, I don't know.
Yeah.
I was in Texas. And then 2016, like it came up at the casino I was working at. Like somebody brought it up and then I looked it up on Reddit, like was where I was spending my time.
Right.
But I didn't find the builders. Like I didn't find crypto people.
You found the hype.
They were all on Twitter.
Yeah.
I found this like group of consumers, right? I would say consumer maybe is the right word, where it's like not the people making YouTube content, the people like consuming it, not the people building crypto, the people consuming it.
Sure,
so I was in some of those pockets briefly, but yeah, I just like had a friend at law school and we're like, okay, we're in law school. AI can read a contract faster than we can. Smart contracts can automate a contract, which makes us useless. We should go do that.
Right.
And so that company ended up failing a year and a half. We had like a run. And
was it a failure though? Like I'm assuming you learned an infinite amount from it that has set you up for success now. So
yeah, for me, it was a combination of like two things. I had a thesis in law school, not like a paper because I didn't do that, but a thesis of mine, which was like, if the best lawyers in the country are all working 70 hours a week and hating themselves right now, which is what happens, on a topic they're good at or elite at, they aren't learning blockchain right now.
Right.
So I was like, as a student, I should be able to put in 40 hours a week or more studying everything that comes out on blockchain and law and regulation and securities, finish law school with literal thousands of hours of blockchain knowledge. And then add me building a company in the blockchain world on top of that. So when I came out, I had been through productizing, building, selling, like pros, cons, on-chain, off-chain, like all of that. And I understood the legal ramifications as well or better than most people. So on the tail end, I was like, 2020 was kind of a wash. It was COVID. My dad passed, like life was weird. And then I just kind of like late in the year was like, oh my God, NFTs, I get this iteration. I get NBA Topshot. That's a very like collectibles makes sense, right? Like most of the people in this wave, if you're looking at who's been successful in the last year, Topshots was their trigger.
Yeah, a huge number.
Most. There's some who are earlier than that, and there's some who it's punks or they came in at like a higher class echelon with like more money on day one.
Yeah.
But Topshots triggered this whole run, and maybe Nifty Gateway for some people, right? But those are the two triggers in early.
Although I feel like Nifty has had a lot more retail influence earlier. I would say, whereas I don't know if the kind of like big traders, the big names that you see today throughout the space and on crypto Twitter and all that stuff necessarily were like Nifty first. But yeah, Topshot on the other hand is like this weird, or it was this weird sort of incubator for so many people to be like, oh, I grok this now. I get it. I'm in. And I personally wasn't involved in that wave. I was doing other stuff. Actually, at the time, I was first interested in stuff that was on Nifty and a little bit of other bits and pieces here and there. But yeah, Topshot passed me by, but I wish it hadn't because I was like, oh, damn, okay, yeah, that went really big. So I'm curious, you were in law school, you started this company that then didn't end up working out, but the Topshot wave happened and all this other stuff started coming up, and you then were only then comfortable to be like, I'm going to throw some money at some of these NFTs and see what happens? Or like, what was it for you that changed I need this to be useful to it looks nice? Yeah.
So so I finished law school May 2019.
Okay.
So I passed the bar California, like I'm a lawyer and everything at that point, but I was still on the company because I was like, this is more important.
Right.
company we wound down at the end of 2019, early 2020. So most of 2020, I just kind of like kicked around doing some freelance work and like it was COVID and whatever. So I was just chilling. Sure. What triggered for me, I think November 2020, December, I went ahead and like started a Topshot account, put money in, and I was like, at a minimum, this is fun. Like I went home, I looked at my baseball cards, my Pokemon cards, you know, like I was like, oh, like in December, I was like at my mom's house looking through all the stuff and I was like, this is okay. I get this. And like I bought a pack and like, well, actually, I take that back. I sat in line for a pack.
Right.
Like 4 times. I was just like, wow, this demand is insane. And then I got on Clubhouse all around the same time. And Clubhouse was where I was like, oh my God, okay, all these people are bored. They've got money. Crypto's still going up. They don't trust the government. They like collectibles and art, right? Like all the triggers, if you paid attention to Clubhouse at all early 2021, late 2020, it became one of their largest verticals as well. Like Clubhouse literally still like views NFTs as one of their most important verticals, which is wild. But so all of that, I was like, all right, after paying attention for a little while as a consumer, I was like, there's no lawyers here. All these artists are like collaborating and like making money together, making content together.
Right.
And then splitting the money halfsies.
Right.
But if the money went into Matt's wallet and then Matt sends Milo half, you still owe the full tax burden unless you 1099 him.
Right.
Right.
Nobody was doing that. Nobody had S corps. Nobody was 1099ing their friends. They're like, oh, it's my friend. I just sent him half the ETH.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is wide open. So I actually decided before there was 100 million in sales on OpenSea, which there ended up being like 40 billion last year. Before there was 100 million, I told my wife, I'm going to treat my law firm like a startup.
Okay.
And I'm just going to bust my balls and be the only real lawyer here at this tip of this corner of the market.
And so that's JTM Tech.
That's JTM Tech Law. Yeah. So I started a firm like January 2021. Okay. And I was like, this is just what I'll do. This is what I'll focus on.
And that was from the beginning then. It was just NFTs. That's right.
Pretty much. Yeah. So before that, I was like personally doing like freelance lawyering and just kind of like taking on some work from friends or other lawyers or whatever.
In the space still.
Not much in blockchain. No, like startups, just startups in general.
Okay. Yeah.
Blockchain, I was like kind of worried. I was like, I don't want to build tokenomics for anybody. I'm not a securities lawyer. Like I don't know how to front and be like, I'm a blockchain lawyer. But it's like, but I do know how all of the inner workings of the contracts work. I do know basic startup stuff. I do know what artists aren't doing right now. And like, so what I ended up doing was I ended up becoming more of like a strategist advisor to people. So like I didn't do a ton of paperwork. I did some paperwork.
Sure.
But I didn't want to do a ton of paperwork. I would help with like a contract, but it's more of like, so are we doing it on this chain or that chain and why? And how are the royalties splitting? And how does this even work? And who owns the IP? And
so much more strategy.
Like that's right. It's very strategy
minutia of how is this worded?
That's right. Sorry. Exactly. Yeah. So like I was the last person to like redline a contract because I don't like the way a comma is used. I'm like, whatever, use your comma however you want. Like, you know, like, but so I was deep in strategy, but as a lawyer last year, like I only made X amount of dollars. Like I made a reasonable amount of dollars, like $200,000-$300,000 as a lawyer.
Sure.
Total. And then I paid my team and paid my office. I didn't make any money as a lawyer.
Right.
It was minimal, but I ended up advising some projects that I really loved and I took equity.
Okay.
Or I took NFTs.
What was the decision-making for that then?
Sometimes it was available in projects where I didn't take it. Where they're like, do you want an NFT instead of payment? And I was like, no, I got to make X amount of dollars a month to function. I have a daughter and a wife and a whatever.
Yeah.
But sometimes it was like, I don't know that I believe in this project, but like I'm cool with them having a lawyer. I don't think they're a rug or anything. I don't care. Right. Like I'll take the dollars.
Yep.
But the one I missed the biggest was I helped. I don't know if I'm allowed to. I helped a project that's like a legendary project with some stuff, and anonymous team, anonymous stuff. And I was like, this is so anonymous. You don't even have an entity. I don't know how much I can help you.
Okay. Yeah.
But they wanted help anyways. And I charged them like $5,000 for the help I did. I should have asked for one of their kind of their OG pieces. And I didn't. And I probably could have gotten one. And that would have been more than I made all year. You know what I mean? Like it was one of those. Yeah, so like, but then, you know, with Jenkins, the valet, like Tally Labs, like I'm an advisor on that company. Like I have equity in that company and that's worked out really well. And I love those guys.
And is that more often than not when you have equity, is it now via having a token or like, do you have,
not all of these projects have like There's not automatically a token.
No.
There's always equity. Like there's equity. Sometimes there's tokens.
Yeah.
I'd say, but like I'm an advisor there with equity. And then like a conversation I had with Doodles early on.
Yes.
I was like, guys, I don't want your dirty fiat because I think you're going to win. Like I think you're a winning team and project. And so I'll do X per week for X amount of time.
Yep.
But I want doodles. Like I want rare doodles or I want a bunch of doodles or whatever. And that worked out. I made more on that deal than I did on my whole year as a lawyer. But they also have made so much, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's all symbiotic. So it's like,
absolutely.
I realized recently, like the way I want to like things to be seen is like, I don't want anyone to ever think of me as expensive. I just want them to think of me as a value add.
Right.
And even if they pay me more over here, right? Like expensive could be $1,000 an hour as a lawyer. They might give me 800 grand instead, but they made so much along the way that the company is like really happy that they had my help. And that's only X percent. And they're going
to work with you next year and the year after that and the year after that and etc. Yeah. So let's talk about the Doodles deal. Feel free to jump in if you want to, because I know you need to dip fairly soon.
Yeah.
But just with Doodles specifically, because I know you've done a bunch of stuff with them and you've been talking about it a little bit on Twitter recently as well. So you were involved how early in the process? Like how early did they reach out to you, and what sort of stuff were you advising on, and what I guess have you learned from that whole thing as well? Because I'm sure being in from when you were with them, that must have been quite a illuminating experience to see that whole process.
Yeah, I would say with Doodles, it was one of those projects where like I followed them really early actually and joined their Discord really early, like well before I knew them and well before they minted.
So as just a member of the
Discord.
consumer.
I just saw art and I was like, oh, that's fun. And I clicked on it.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine had followed the artist Burnt Toast on Instagram for a while, and like we had talked about it.
Cool. Okay, cool.
So it's like that was like a really organic Jacob the consumer finding a project. And then when they reached out to me, they're like, oh my God, you already follow us and we need a lawyer to help with some stuff, just basic setup stuff and whatever. So I was working with them before they launched in like a basic lawyer capacity.
Sure.
And then kind of turned into more of a legal advisor strategist, which turned into more of like just a general business advisor strategist. You know what I mean? Like there was a little bit of lawyering at that point, but I went ahead and like found an external lawyer and like looped in an external lawyer to like do heavy hitting IP stuff and heavy hitting security stuff, like stuff where it's like, I don't ever front like I'm a full law firm. It's like, no. Like I'm good at what I do. And so with the guys, I transferred a bit into that, like that role. And then I actually kind of leaned in like in December. So December through February, I leaned in more of like a half of my week really was like,
oh, wow. Okay.
Really like leaned in through like a sprint as they were prepping for Space Doodles and prepping for some stuff. And so I put in actually quite a lot during that time. And yeah, it's fascinating to see like a team in any world where like no startup makes that much money that quickly.
Right. Yeah.
And then has to deal with having 20 people on a team spread across the world, different time zones.
Right.
Like different expectations. Also like a startup, usually everybody has equity and some low salary, but with a company like a PFP project, an NFT project, there's not salary usually given to people that join the team. And so Doodles didn't have it as much because they have like really good vibes and like the team all like really loves each other.
Right.
But the whole space has just this mercenary attitude.
It's very, very parasitic in that.
Because you'd rather have like 5% of the mint and then go to the next project and have 5% of the mint, right? Yeah. Like if you're not a co-founder, you just want a piece continually. And so I got to see a lot of those dynamics from inside of a team, like where I was like really, they became the team that I was working with closest out of like the whole sector. And Steven and I were raising the funds still. So Steven and I are almost done raising Two Punks Capital. And he's full-time on the fund. I'm actually more like, I mean, at this point, most people in the space know Guy Osiri, where like Guy manages musicians, works with Yuga, but also works with Ashton at their venture fund and like whatever. I'm a bit more doing that style of thing where like I've left my law firm open technically. I'm doing, my consulting arm is open. Like,
right.
So if the right projects come through or the right opportunities come through, I want to make myself available to go like help shape culture or help build important things, even if I'm not able to invest from the fund.
Right. Okay.
So like, I'm like,
it's not primarily about that for you.
That's right. That's right. So the fund isn't like my only thing I do.
Yeah.
And it's not like I have to invest or I can't talk to you.
Right.
Which is how most VCs have to live their life because they're using someone else's money and they have to look for opportunities. Whereas I'm treating it more like 70-30. Like my team's 70% investing from the fund, 30% like, what do I want to do? Like my call with Singapore at 10 p.m. last night had nothing to do with the fund.
Right.
It was a group working on a thing that may or may not turn into like a big consulting opportunity or like helping them scale through a certain issue they're going through, you know?
Yeah. So do you feel like a lot of these projects are just winging it. They're not seeking any legal advice, no legal counsel. They're just like, well, we can make money here, so let's make money and see what happens. Or is it getting to a point where it's maturing a little now?
Kevin Rose and Moonbirds. When you've got when your CEO has been on the cover of every magazine in the world as an entrepreneur, your COO built Treehouse. You know what I mean? Like when your team is this top notch, I think what's about to happen is we're about to see a wave of hella heavy hitter Web 2 entrepreneurs, proven teams, proven unicorns, proven VCs even build teams. And those are all buttoned up. Yeah. Those are all like lawyered to the tits. Like,
and that's because
absolutely like
they've been the same way in Web 2.
Exactly. Right. Because they've got all the startup capital because they're rich already.
Yes.
Right.
So most projects, I would say, like one of the big common denominators I saw last year was people would reach out to me and be like, we want to do such and such like so-and-so. And I'm like, yeah, but they don't have lawyers. Right. Or they didn't care.
Yeah.
And they're talking to me. They're like, how do you know? And I'm like, because I've talked to the team. Right. Or like, it's like, well, but CyberKongz yields banana every day. I'm like, and Mew is anonymous.
Right. Yeah.
And they're like, but I'm like,
but what?
And Mew is anonymous, right? Like, there's nothing. I can't replicate that for you in a legally compliant way. Like that's not how that works. And so, I would say January, February last year was art and Topshots. Then it all just turned into like super degenerate. What can we sell? Yeah. So March through June, probably way too much art on Nifty Gateway, way too many collectibles every day on open, just way too much everything.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Almost none of that was lawyered.
Yes. Yeah.
Almost none of that was lawyered up. And so anyone that did succeed from that time, like it's like even looking at Bored Apes, right? Like people that are fading apes now are just idiots. But it wasn't like hard to fade apes last year in April and May and June. Never heard of these guys. It's a not doxed team. It's a monkey picture. You like it or you don't. You know what I mean? Like, it's not legendary CryptoPunk early art. It's not legendary blah blah blah. Like at this time,
CryptoKitty, whatever.
So the fact that they even survived is like a pretty big deal if you go back and look through all of the others that didn't from the same 6-week minting window. You know what I mean? So you look at the team now and you're like, oh my God, like I would absolutely buy the hell out of them at $200. Right. It's like, yeah, but you didn't. Yeah. You know? So I would say that where the market has matured to now is like, okay, Yuga is the best team in the space, maybe. Definitely the highest traction, most revenue.
Yes, yeah.
Proof could be the best team in the space from like whatever your metrics are, right?
We'll see, yeah.
You know what I mean? So you kind of look at the space and you would think like, maybe the market has matured, but at the same time, Proof brought in like $80 million in a day on Moonbirds and got a bunch of FUD over it. And now the cheapest one's 33 ETH. Yeah. And they sold at 2.5. You know what I mean? So like they could have probably done a Dutch auction at 10 ETH and made 400 million in a day, and we would have probably still given it to them.
Oh, and people would have also still complained about how sketch it was and all these things.
They did 200 million in the first 24, 48 hours.
That's secondaries.
Yeah, that's volume.
So in royalties, they did what? 10 million?
Yeah.
On 200, right? It's like 5% royalty or whatever. So maybe they made another 10 million.
Yeah.
But like, so I know that's one of the kind of, I feel like that's one of the baity headlines that I've seen on a lot of like articles and stuff where it's like, these birds did 200 million in sales. And it's like, yeah, technically, but that's not like a startup that did 200 million in revenue.
Sure.
Right?
But you know what I mean? It's still pretty impressive that I believe the stat was that the CryptoPunks, Apes, like Doodles, all the like let's say it's like the top 5 projects, their complete volume over 7 days was still lower than that, like Moonbird's initial
I think the time period in which it happened is what's incredible.
Yeah, it was really damn.
That's insane.
Damn quick.
Yeah. And so I think that's the maturity part that you're asking about. Though.
Yeah.
Like I think the market has matured in certain ways because we aren't just minting random things at 0.1 or 0.08 ETH anymore. And
certainly less so compared to
way less
May, June last year. Yeah,
that's right. When it's minting now, it's at least like a longer, sophisticated hype cycle, and they involve certain people and they seem more buttoned up. So like I would say now there's probably more people probably have lawyers. More people are like doing some of the basics for sure. But I think the proof model right now is about to prove like And then there's like Quantum with Justin Eversano with photography and stuff.
Yep.
Like they have their Quantum Pass.
Shout out to Justin.
Yeah, shout out Justin. Justin, I used to own 2 different Twin Flames.
Oh no,
I don't.
You don't own anymore?
One.
No,
I traded one for my Punk though. So
okay, well,
like I was one of the first like Punk for Flames trades.
Yeah,
and I have 5 of Justin's original Polaroids from the Twin Flames collection.
Amazing,
like physical sitting in my office.
Cool.
But so like the Quantum Pass is like similar to Proof Pass. Like it yields opportunities to get photos and whatever in the future. But I think we're entering right for the next 2 months is like this pass era.
Yeah.
So if Proof is a proven team, okay, Quantum, like Justin is a proven top photographer in the market.
Yep.
Quantum raised a venture round, right, from like Flamingo and a bunch of other like legendary investors. And then I think did like 20 million in sales across their passes and like a few other things. Like these are heavily backed, legit teams making legit hires. And so like if your choice is buy a monkey picture from an unproven team, not Yuga, I'm referencing like a new monkey picture from
a new one
team
tomorrow. Yeah.
Versus pony up a little extra and spend $8,000 on an owl from a venture team or 10 grand on a photo from Justin and his team. You know what I mean? Like, I think that we're going to start seeing the price separation amongst like what new investors can and should do and what like the mature market does. Because like I sold a doodle to buy Moonbirds, right? Like I sold a large asset to buy those assets. And then those assets have done far more than I could have thought in a short time. But I had to have buy-in. Like I spent 80 grand on Moonbirds.
Yeah.
You can't just do that, right? Like I've never, that's the most money. Well, I've got to think now with NFTs. Maybe that's not the most I've spent in a day. But again, it's not spend, it's invest, right? So it's a very different mentality around like, we bought my wife a car that wasn't as much as I spent on Moonbirds, but my wife's car is down 10%. My Moonbirds are up 400%, right?
And also
it's different.
When it's ETH, there's that weird psychological.
That's right. It's just like 25
like,
ETH.
80 grand or can't tell. I don't know. It's all price ETH in my head, so I'm not really sure.
It's just 25 ETH. I don't know. Whatever happens.
Whatever that is,
right?
Yeah. I think the fact that you have these sort of Web 2, I don't want to say Web 2 in a sort of derogatory sense here, because it's just sort of like existing companies, basically. A lot of people will say it in this very anti whatever that was or is sense, but you have these companies that are starting to look at the space, or they're influencers that are starting to look at the space, or whatever it is, right? And bringing with them the ways of how things used to be. And I kind of wonder if there are folks out there, I'm sure there are, that feel like, well, that's kind of antithetical to what crypto's meant to be. It's meant to be this Wild West. It's meant to be this crazy environment where no one knows what's going on all the time. You start getting lawyers involved, suddenly things start to feel a little bit less like everything can go in any direction at any time and stuff like that, right? Which I think has been so beneficial to its success, because people have just walked all over whatever regulation might be out there. And that's one of those areas where you see stuff like ApeCoin now, and you've got your Kongs yielding banana, and you've got milk with cool cats, and you've got all those sorts of different things. I would love to hear your view on just regulatorily where that sits currently, in terms of, I don't know if that sort of thing has been tested in court at all. I mean, you have your whole conversation around things being securities, right? You then, separate to that, have the entire conversation that the people that are not in crypto will just allege that all of this is a scam and it's all only a Ponzi scheme and that's it. And it doesn't mean anything. It's a meaningless token. So how are you sort of looking at that right now? And how do you sort of respond to those sorts of claims as well? I mean, like, are they all just securities? Is the House of Cards going to fall down next week? Like, how does that work?
Right. I think, well, one thing I'd be curious before I add that is like, Matt, what are you seeing from like a combination of like your audience, people that you talk to a lot, and the other content creators, like with the fear of crypto or the fear of like involvement at all? Like, from what I've seen, it's very usually minimal around regulation and usually more around like environment and propaganda and like, you know, like maybe like Ponzi vibes, right? Like it's usually much less on the legal front. It's like we mentioned a couple influencers earlier that are massive that like haven't done anything formal here, but then there's some that are massive that have done formal things here. But like, how do you feel like the buzz is more on your side?
I would say it's like two different crowds, right? The as Milo calls it, normies, like traditional day-to-day people that don't have any involvement in this stuff, would look at it as like a scam. There's environmental issue. Ponzi scheme, like whatever their reasoning is for not being involved is what it is. But people in the space, I would say from people that I've talked to, the most prevalent thing that I see in like when we're talking about a different project is usually just like IP or copyright issues. Like Goonies Gang is one that comes to mind, where it's like, that's Daffy Duck, just reskinned. Don't know if that's going to be an issue for them or not. I have no idea if they have legal counsel. Who knows? But I personally was like, I'm not even touching that because that's Daffy Duck. And if they don't have the proper, licensing, like they're toast. It's a matter of time. And I think other influencers in the space that I've talked to also tend to pick up the copyright and like IP issues. Like there's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I think just came out with they just posted an NFT Twitter. No one really can verify if they actually own the licensing for that or not. Like it's very hard to tell sometimes, like, do they have the proper legal in place to actually be able to post and like sell these things? So I'd say that's
interesting. That's an interesting thought on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because I was just chatting with someone recently who was saying that like Lionsgate or any of the big like media houses, they've got a lot of like library content.
Yeah,
that like they're the only ones in the world that have the right to remake it or to do more with it, like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But I also chatted with an actor recently who's quite prominent who mentioned NFTs once and got so much hell on his Twitter that his agent called him and was like, I just got off with a studio. Take it down or they won't cast you again.
Dang.
Like with one specific guy, with one specific audience, whatever. They're like, we're not going to recast you for next season if you don't take that down right now. So it's interesting because think about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So like there's the actor level, then there's the content, then there's the studio. And like the only way we can know that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles IP is legit is if literal Lionsgate level, Warner Brother level people tweet out or release an article, we are green lighting a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle NFT.
Yeah. And I don't see that
are
happening.
Not suing this group, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's
you would
not
need
happening.
them to do it, but if they did it, it would FUD their own.
Yeah,
their
exactly.
Own consumer base. Would
That's
be
why
like,
it's not happening. I feel like Vivi.
That's a funky middle. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Oh, it's weird. Like, it's like you're not going to get that verification.
Yeah. And like if Lord of the Rings did something, if Amazon didn't come out and say thumbs up, but if Amazon did that, like
it would be chaos.
That's the whole consumer base is the whole world.
Yeah.
And so they would lose X% of the whole world. Right?
Well, yeah,
they would lose 7%
it'd be massive
of their
nerve. It would be massive
something.
news, right? So like you're not going to get that. So you don't know. So you're constantly battling. Like, is this worth wasting my time on investing in potentially to see it, all go to shit in one day? You just don't know. So I try to avoid those kind of things.
I don't know if you guys have seen any of them that actually got nuked, but like Chubbys got nuked. Do you remember Chubbys from about this time last year?
Yeah.
I wasn't involved last year at this time.
So it was one of the first major pushed FOMO ramp NFTs. So like it started at 0.05, it went all the way up to 0.2 or
it was
to 2 ETH.
bonding curve, right?
Yeah, bonding curve. Or it started, I don't remember exactly I don't remember if it was a high to low or a low to high, but it was some kind of curve. And like Gary Vee like tweeted about it and a couple other kind of major people tweeted about it. It was one of the first ones that had a real push from anyone that was like, this is cool. This is going to change the game. Like this is like punks, but different, new, right? That project publicly ended up getting nuked because they more or less traced over the artwork of another artist, a pixel artist from 2016. And I ended up involved in that situation in general. So like I can't give specifics beyond literally what's publicly on Twitter.
As in you were involved in a work capacity, not as a buyer. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, okay. So like I was involved in the project, or not in Chubbys, but I was involved in the Pixel Hans Chubbys saga.
Yes,
right. Okay. I was involved. So I can only give what's on Twitter. But if you look at Twitter, that's a project that sold out, made millions of dollars, had support from major players, and then publicly was called out for allegedly stealing someone else's work. And the market was like, yeah, you can't get around this. This is that person's work. And they all kind of publicly were like, this is awkward.
Yeah.
And then it just, just done. Right. So people who spent, I know my buddy Hunter Orell put 2 ETH into a Chubby because I think it was like, I think Gary bought one, like say it was number 8 and Hunter bought number 9, right? He bought like whatever the one was right next to Gary's in this process. And he was like, I spent 2 ETH, like whatever, just gone.
Yeah.
2 ETH gone, which like at the time was still $4 or $5 grand, like it's like not an insignificant amount of money. And so, yeah, the IP, I think IP is actually, you're right. I think IP is more common concern. So I think there's the three buckets right now there's IP concerns, there's propaganda, which includes environmental, it includes crypto's a scam, it includes like Senator Warren, you know what I mean? Like that.
Yep.
And Senator Warren is in the Venn diagram between politics and propaganda.
Right.
Right. So then, and in the politics regulatory bucket. So I'd say those are the three buckets where it's like, well, and if you were to add a fourth, maybe it's just price. So you've got like
I would say the security issue
is
is definitely something I think about frequently.
like securing your assets.
No. Being like some of these are
security.
borderline security, and until they regulate it, it's hard to know whether or not, like what side of the line they're going to fall on.
Yeah.
Some of them are definitely like if you go through the criteria, you're like, okay, this is a security, and you cannot tell me otherwise.
That's right.
And I actually have to run, unfortunately, which really sucks because I'm enjoying the shit out of this. Fuck, I have so many questions.
So, are they all securities?
Yeah, everything's a security.
They all are. Yeah. Damn.
No, they're not all securities. I mean, there are a lot of like really stupid takes on this though.
Okay, so let's do baby's first introduction to securities, right? So I am not a lawyer, so I'm going to throw some things at you here, and you're going to tell me I've got it all wrong. So securities are either a security or not based on application of the Howey test. Is that correct?
Yep.
And the Howey test, I think, is 4 or 5 criteria. And if all of the criteria...
I'll give you the baby version.
Okay, perfect, yeah.
The baby version of the Howey test is, did you buy a thing?
Yeah.
Expecting thing to go up in value? For you doing no thing?
Okay, yeah. Gotcha.
Security.
Okay. So if there's promise from the team that you're buying
expectation
it from,
that you're basically betting on someone or something to make thing go up.
Yeah.
And you do no thing.
Yeah.
So the argument from like a DAO or a group, friends with benefits, or some of these tokens is that you hold their token, and yes, you do want their token to go up, but you're helping their token go up.
Okay.
So you're involved. You're in.
Oh, that completely absolves the team.
Doesn't necessarily absolve it, but it takes the prongs, like the one prong that says by you doing no thing.
Yeah.
And that one goes away. So now you did something, or it was expected of you to do something. So you want to think about the prongs. There's four prongs. You don't want to fail any of them.
Yep.
But
so it's even one fail could make it a security or no?
One fail puts it in buying a thing expecting it to go up in value is kind of everything in life, right? You are collectibles. You hope this is a special mirror.
It's what I mean? Like, it's the promise that it's going to go up, right? That's where the risk is, or no?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
No. And this is the part where, like, for me, it's like I know just enough to be relevant and dangerous, but I'm not a 30-year securities lawyer, and I don't design tokenomics for people.
Yeah.
I just know that if you come to me and you're like, me and Matt want to sell 1,000 of these crypto content passes, and we're going to yield content. It's like, okay, so the pass was just a sale of future content. That's it. All you're going to yield is future content.
Yeah.
Cool. But if you're like, after a year, we're going to sell the show to Hulu, and then we're going to share 50% of the payout from Hulu with our holders. It's like, ooh, okay. Well, so what happens is there's a lot of framing involved. So like when you did the original sale, if all you said was buy this, get content, and that's it.
Yep.
And then a year later, you decide to send everyone 50 grand.
Yeah.
It might feel like it's a security at that point. So basically, if you realize what I just described, Bored Apes dropping you things, right? Like they're dropping you a dog that you didn't have on the original sale. They're dropping you a mutant that wasn't on the original sale. Airdrops is a way to kind of provide a dividend-styled upside on an asset, but also make your argument in court that when you originally sold the asset, it was not them taking a bet on you in exchange for return. Right. So it's more of like, are you buying the Goonies thing he mentioned earlier? It's like, he's worried about the IP, but what if they were like, we're guaranteeing you to do a television show and we're guaranteeing you to share half of all of our royalties.
Right.
It's like, well, then I might give you 100 grand because I feel like I've done the math and I'm going to profit. Like you're going to profit me money.
And that whole thought process, like all of that calculation you're doing is something you would do for a security.
That's right.
Right. Okay.
That's right.
Interesting. So one of the areas of FUD that we were just talking about that you hear from normies, from retail, from folks that are heavily successful in Web 2 maybe, and they're just sort of scared of crypto or they don't believe in it or whatever, is, for example, with games, actually, let's use that as an example. Some big video game right now, let's say Call of Duty, they're gonna sell weapon skins or whatever it might be, or Fortnite, skins in the game, and then they're gonna sell them. And this might be something that the people in the space currently say. They're going to sell them and they're going to tell you, you can resell these and make money. Is that a security kind of mental jump? Or is that more so saying, we're giving you more ownership of something here where previously we just gave you a license to use those things? Is that securities territory or not really?
Yeah, so I think framing, I'll just say framing is the right way to look at all of this. Like a normal lawyer would say it depends, right? Everything kind of depends. But in that math, think about it like collectibles. When somebody gives you a collectible, when the Dodgers give out collectible bobbleheads when you show up, there's an assumption that you can collect it and someday sell it. There's an assumption that it might mean something
and
to
they'll
someone.
Be scarce. And so
it's a Clayton Kershaw special edition, 3-time Cy Young, 5,000 strikeouts, whatever.
Yeah.
Inherently probably has value. Miguel Cabrera is going to hit his 3,000th hit today, right? Like I'm a baseball fan. Like he'll get his 3,000th hit today. There's only X amount of people that have ever done X, Y, and Z. There's a collectible nature to things in life that probably will go up in value. That's not the same as someone buying something in a like guaranteed hope that it profits.
Yeah. So that's where the framing
That's kind of
important.
The framing is like this guarantee. So like with Call of Duty, with Fortnite. So like one thing, a good example that I like to use that I think makes a lot of sense, and it's helped. It's the one that hits with like 15-year-olds the hardest.
Okay.
Or their parents. Is imagine you're playing Roblox. Imagine Taylor Swift does 10,000 red guitars.
Sure.
She's got a red guitar, 10,000 red guitars. Okay. 60 million daily players on Roblox, only 10,000 red guitars. Do you believe that if you got one of those somehow, one of your friends would be jealous and want to buy it from you? And the argument is like, well, yeah.
Of course.
Is there a secondary market? It's like, yeah. So 60 million players, let's say 1% are interested. 600,000 people are interested.
Sure.
You only need 1% to be interested to create a market for 10,000 assets, right? The supply and demand. That's not a security because you didn't buy the Taylor Swift guitar solely with a guarantee that it was going up in value on behalf of someone else building something cool. You just got lucky and got a rare collectible.
Right.
And collectibles like Topshots, right? Like collectibles have this different, you don't really buy art or collectibles thinking it'll go down in value. You're always thinking it's going up in value, but it's not in securities territory because it's not a company selling you a thing saying you don't have to do anything, buddy. We're going to do it all and you're going to profit.
Yeah.
That's not how that works. So there's a fine line between like selling a piece of the company or selling a thing that attaches like a guaranteed kind of profit to it.
Yeah.
Whereas it feels like if there were 10,000 red guitars from Taylor Swift or 10,000 Travis Scott McDonald's hoodies in Fortnite or 10,000 Snoop Dogg's in Call of Duty Zombies, right? Only 10,000 Snoop Dogg's.
Snoop Dogg has actually just been added.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like I saw that, right? So it's like, but that could be, that's an open sale, right? It's like anyone in the world can spend $5, whatever, $10, $25 and buy the Snoop Dogg package. I think it's going to be more interesting when we make this shift, or let's say with Snoop Dogg. So I've thought about this a bit the last few days, actually. I've been playing League of Legends since I was 16. I'm 26, 10 years. I've been since season 2.
Okay, season 3 for me.
So I have some old skins that aren't in the marketplace anymore.
Right.
But you can still use it in game. And sometimes other people are like, dude, sick skin, have never seen it before. Like, what is that? And it's like, it's a season 2 Annie skin, right? Or it's a season 3 Blitzcrank skin that like isn't available anymore. All they have to do is spin up a secondary marketplace where we can transact in old skins. They will absolutely fly. Someone who's been playing only since season 8 and loves Blitzcrank and wants the full range of Blitzcrank skins will go spend hundreds of dollars acquiring old collectible skins.
Of course, yeah.
Because right now you'd have to go buy their whole account and you still can't move it from their account to your account.
Yep.
So there's not even that functionality. And I think what's going to happen with Call of Duty skins, Fortnite skins, League of Legends skins, in an ideal world, we get to this Ready Player One place where you can just carry all your skins with you into any game, anything.
Well, so
some kind of composable avatar.
You think that composability is the future, or rather, do you think that it should be?
I think like you playing Call of Duty Zombies as you or as your ideal person or thing makes sense. But like even if you were, I mean, like, okay, you don't want to bring Blitzcrank into Call of Duty Zombies, because it'll take up too many pixels and like you won't be able to run past the zombies, right? Like I understand, like, you need to be nimble and small. You don't want to have like a 5x too wide.
But that's like that would be like a preference thing for the way the game works, but also just in terms of a development standpoint, trying to port
it's going to be hella difficult to allow just anything to come in. But so it's actually something me and my partner have been looking at on the investment front, is like, what if there were a tool where you could like stake an asset, or like you're in Fortnite, you can put your skin in this one bucket.
Your Fortnite skin
in this bucket. And as long as it's in this bucket and you're pointing it where to go, you're like, I don't know, maybe there's like a link to Call of Duty, or there's a link to your like your like personal holdings. And then you go to your personal holdings of whatever they are on your main dashboard of all your internet things. And you click a button and you click Call of Duty and you click link, and all of a sudden you can dress like that in there. That's what I think Ready Player One looks like, right? Ready Player One, you see people kind of switching through their skins, they're clicking a button, they're switching their look, whatever world they're in. I'm not huge on like, Xbox games have to work on PlayStation and Mario Kart has to work on PC. Like, but is that not the same as I'm less thinking about what the game hardware has to be.
Okay.
And I'm more about like at this cloud level, you should have a way to move digitally owned assets just with your personal digital identity. Like, why would I want to like spend $500 here and $1,000 over here and $200 over here and just leave them in?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we'll see a place most likely where you've got, let's say, your League marketplace and you have your Call of Duty marketplace, and maybe there are representations of the things that you have within those sort of walled gardens. Maybe you've got a representation of that in your wallet, right, in your MetaMask sitting there, but I think what we're most likely going to butt up against is the fact that for a lot of these developers, I don't think there necessarily is clear incentive for them to want to have composability there. And then also from all the devs that I've spoken to across the industry, it's such a nightmare. Even with their own assets, they can't get them to work half the time. Like, they'll remaster their own game, they'll have to rebuild everything from scratch because it's so difficult to hack everything together. And so I think I think
digital identity is going to outweigh.
But
I really do. I really think like my little brother tends to make his character look the exact same to the best of his ability in every game he plays.
Interesting.
It's like anytime he's in a dungeon crawler, anytime he's in Minecraft, anytime he's in anything, he's like a blonde girl with pigtails and a bikini. And he's just always thought that was hilarious since he was like 9.
Yeah.
And so he just still does it. Like, it's literally not like a personal representation or trans thing or any of those things, which plenty of people do that as well.
Sure.
He just thought it was a funny joke since he was 9. So
but it's consistent with his online identity.
Always consistent with his personal online identity. And his name can go either way. His name's Skylar. And it's like, cool. Could be guy, could be girl, right? Like,
yeah.
And so he's just always thought that was really funny. And I think if he could play Call of Duty Zombies as his like Fortnite blonde girl in a bikini, as his Minecraft girl in a bikini, like if there was a way for him to have some amount of like that, I think there's a world where certain people will try certain games because they can take their favorite character avatar from the other game into that game.
So do you think,
like, I think he might play Call of Duty Zombies in his dungeon crawler identity, like who he is as a dungeon crawler, might go play Call of Duty Zombies as his dungeon crawler avatar before he's likely to go just have like a military outfit and shoot zombies.
Right.
I think there's a world where it actually transitions
like that would pull him into the game because it's like, well, I feel like it's more me here, that kind of vibe. Or
I think maybe the word that I'm trying to find the word right now because I think it's a really fascinating convo and you've got more knowledge on it than most. Like, I think what's going to end up happening is there's going to be 2 layers. There's the meritocracy of the game. Like, what is a good game?
Yep.
And then there's the identity layer.
Yes.
And you have to be able to just travel across the whole digital realm as yourself, I think. So I'm not worried about like interoperability of blockchains. Like, oh, well, this one's ETH and this one's Ronin and this one's Solana and this one's Call of Duty on AWS. Like, that's less relevant. It's more of like Skylar showed up, Jacob showed up, Milo showed up, period. and you've got your bag of tricks to pull from, your bag of, for just for your looks, even that's fine. I don't want to show up in Call of Duty and then do a blitzcrank pull. Right. Like I don't need to move game bits in that way.
The mechanics of the game can stay.
But I do think that it would allow for a certain like, it's like us as humans walking through Dave and Buster's. We get to go to 50 different games, but it's still us.
But do you
know what I mean?
Do you think because I think right now a lot of folks will see that possibility of the future. And one of the things that they'll kind of butt up against is they'll be looking at Mario and they'll be like, well, it's kind of Mario because it's Mario, right? Or Sonic, or like all these classic characters from over the years. And a lot of the crypto ethos is pushing towards things being interoperable, and it's pushing towards composability, and it's pushing towards more open licensing with things, Creative Commons or whatever, which we can talk about. I think that would be great to talk about in a second here. But it's really, really pushing in that direction. But I think there's also a huge number of people that would rather be just the thing that's there. And that's not to say that maybe that option would go away. But if you're building out infrastructure that's going to allow for this interoperability, I almost feel like you're making a different game at that point. Like COD, where my bikini girl from Fortnite, let's say, is in the game, is sort of by definition the experience of what's happening there and the let's say the narrative implications or whatever, like all these other things. It's a different game. Yeah. And I think that maybe that will just mean that some studios, if that's the future that we do get, they'll just sort of opt out of it because they're like, well, I'm creating this piece of art that's like an experience that we're curating really clearly. And then others, maybe like a Fortnite type thing, may have more room for you to be anyone and anything because they're already smushing all these IPs together, right? Iron Man's in the game. And then at the same time, you've got, I mean, it's all sorts of weird and wacky stuff is in the game at this point. So I personally am kind of uncertain what the future would look like if that composability became possible, if the tech got figured out, which is such a mountain to climb. But if, let's just say, I'm really curious where that would find, like, I feel like it wouldn't make sense to say current games with that, but more so it would be a new type of game that relies on that, where your identity being from elsewhere has meaning. Whereas if you're just putting your identity in COD, I don't know if that means the same thing that it could be compared to a game that is more about you being in the game. Like if they made the narrative about you, the player, being the character, that would be really cool.
I think you might have a double layered dive that might happen where like you're in whatever this like realm is within your Oculus headsets or within your computer screen or whatever. And like if you're going to play Mario Kart and you understand that it's a walled garden that is just Mario Kart, you walk around as your girl in a bikini and you walk up to a Mario Kart station and you click a button and you go in and now you're playing just Mario Kart.
Right.
And then you come out and you're you know what I mean? Like I think there's something there with like Oculus and with others where like I think there's going to be, I just think so one of the things that I think about a lot as an investor, as a person, is like if I sleep for 7 hours a day, just call it 8 for thirds, right? So if I sleep for 8 hours a day and I'm on a screen for 8 to 10 hours a day, so whatever the screen might be, phone, laptop, whatever.
Sure.
That's a third of my life digital, but also about 50% of my waking hours digital. Right. So I've reached the point where I'm like, okay, I didn't drive here in my dream Tesla, but I told you guys I have 3 Moonbirds. You know what I mean? So there's something about digital assets and digital identity that I think is like superseding certain real world things.
Right. Yeah.
And so I have to think at the end of the day, the My Little Brother's bikini girl identity
means something.
Actually means something to him because he spends a literal half of his day on a screen. I spend literal half of my day on a screen. So when I send emails to you guys, my punk is on my email always. So anyone who gets my emails, like I just had coffee with a guy last week and he jokingly was telling someone else at the lunch with us, he's like, yeah, Jacob sent me a message with his Rolls Royce attached. And I was like, I kind of just looked at him and the guy was like, what?
Yeah.
Jacob, do you have a Rolls Royce? And I was like, no. And he was like, no, but like this profile picture image on your email is the same as you seeing a Rolls Royce as like a reminder.
Yeah.
And I was like, in a negative way? Like, are we like, what do you think? And he was like,
you talking shit, bro?
He was, I was just like, I don't, and he was like, no, it's just like, this is an interesting shift that it's not just the letter J next to your email. It's like anyone who knows what that is knows that that's a $250,000 digitally owned asset. And I'm like, yeah, like I don't have my dream car, but I have multiple of these assets at that level. So when I think about gaming also to me is officially kind of shifting into the realm of like AR, VR, metaverse, and then independent games.
So do you think that's gonna, because right now AR and VR, they've really failed to like capture market share, right? They've just sort of stagnated and they've plateoed. Do you think there's gonna be another leg up where they really start to capture everyone?
I think so. I think what we're seeing right now is like, I saw an article a couple of weeks ago that said like 5 million less men are in the workforce right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's like, well, yeah, because through a combination of them knowing how to trade stocks and crypto and playing video games, they don't have to work.
Yeah. And they don't intend to go back to work.
And they don't intend to go back to work if they don't have to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, like I could stop working right now and just play video games, right? Like for a while. Like, and if I'm still trading effectively forever. Right. But I think there's a group of people where like, as long as their basic needs are met, like they're just going to play games. Yeah. They already play games. I mean, it is true to say like VR, AR has plateaued, but at the same time, like hours consumed on YouTube, Twitch, and playing games independently is still on the way up.
Up only.
Like quite hard, right? So I have to believe that. I was just talking to Eric Weinstein about this recently, who's done a ton of VR himself and like really tried all of them. And he was just like, I'm not confident that the tech exists yet that's going to win. He's like, but something has to win. He's like, there's enough people interested in it winning and in consuming it that like something will win. And I think that's right. So I think something will come. And I think for Steven and I investing, we're like, we don't invest in independent games very often. We're looking at studios, or we're looking to do multiple games, or we're looking at systems that are working on composability for avatars, or we're looking at VR plays or AR plays, right? Like we're looking at sector-wide choices and decisions and teams, because independent games, one game is so hard to win, so hard to get right, so hard to have market share. So we've invested in one game recently that I think is quite great.
So it's a Web3 game.
It's actually more of just like a game. It's more of like a Hades styled like dungeon crawler, and Hades. It's like anime. Like it's a Japanese anime approach to this like dungeon crawler. Super high quality graphics.
Yeah,
like if Final Fantasy was like a modernized dungeon crawler.
Okay,
something like that probably. Yeah, so like super dope. But they're gonna do a skins marketplace. So it's
on
like
the blockchain.
On the blockchain. Yep. So it's like mainly a game, but they'll have this part on the secondary over here. And we thought that was fascinating. We're like, that's a great use case. This team is strong. Like the other investors are really elite, you know, like that made sense for us. In general, it's like, again, like even them, it was only really interesting because I think the marketplace concept made sense. Not so much like, oh, I found the right game.
Right.
Because games they're only going to win so hard.
Yep.
If you found the next Oculus, you would win harder than if you found the best Beat Saber.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you find the next Beat Saber, okay, cool. Like, Facebook will give you like $100 million for it. That's awesome, right? Congrats.
Yeah.
But like, good job. You find the better Oculus.
Yeah.
Or the like, you don't have to log in through Facebook version of Oculus.
Yeah.
You make hundreds of billions. You know what I mean? Like, so we're not like super deep like AR, VR investors, but we're very open to it.
Gotcha. So where amongst your JTM Tech stuff and Two Punks Capital and those things does your work with Ready Player DAO sit? And can you maybe give some context as to what they are?
So in July last year, I was like, what exactly is blockchain gaming? I had watched O'Shiny and Fuckrender and a couple other friends like buy into AXS really early on Axie, like the NFT, like 10 cents, like 25 cents.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Really early.
Yeah.
O'Shiny and Fuckrender specifically were both like just so early.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing them talking about it, and it was like on their Clubhouse a little bit. And I think it was O'Shiny's Clubhouse photo for a while. It was one of his like really rare Axies. And finally in July, I was like, all right, I'm over it. I gotta know what's happening here. And so I tweeted about it. I saw this guy that someone had said it was like a manager, like he managed Axie scholars and he knew a lot. And so I invited like 4 or 5 internet friends, and I invited 4 or 5 like IRL friends. So like my buddy who works at Apple as a creative director, my buddy who played Magic the Gathering for the last 20 years. Like I kind of curated like, if 10 of us were to all put $100,000 together and do a thing, like what would an ideal grouping look like different skill sets. And so a mini DAO kind of thought. And I was like, okay. And so we had a call with the guy that runs most of all of our like Axie activity and several other games. His name's Rich. Rich Cabrera. And Rich, like, we had asked him at one point, what would you do with like $100,000? And then G-Funk from Pixel Vault.
Yeah.
G-Funk goes, no, start hanging zeros. I'll do $100,000 right now myself.
Yeah.
What happens at 250 grand? What happens at $1 million? What happens at 10 million? What's the scale? And Rich was like, oh, I'll have to build a model out. Like I have not done that or thought about that.
Sure,
so that's what we ended up doing. We ended up in 7 days. We had 38 people.
Okay.
We raised $5 million just collectively amongst ourselves. We pooled it. So it was like pro rata.
Yep.
Whatever you put in, you had pro rata ownership of the group. And
this is
Ready Player DAO. Yeah, that was Ready Player DAO. So we didn't ever have another name.
Wow. Okay.
So it started in July.
Yeah.
And so we went really, really heavy into Axie at first, like acquiring Axie assets, like so Axies and AXS and SLP and a lot of the in-game stuff. We have 3,000 scholars now that play a few different games. So Axie, Pegaxie.
And this is 3,000 scholars of your, I believe, roughly 10,000 members of Ready Player DAO.
So we have 55 formal members of the DAO.
Okay.
We have over 10,000 people in our Discord.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Misnomer.
So okay. So the only people that are technical owners right now are in
the 55.
That original investment group of 38, and then people who came in recently.
Yep.
We raised another like $10 million recently.
Yeah, that was announced like a week ago. I think, right?
Exactly.
Very recent. That was like 10.2 mil.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's the second group. So we have 55 people total that are owners, and we're very much in the like Flamingo styled. So there's like Tribute Labs that did Flamingo DAO and Neptune and a bunch of these other private, like kind of private DAOs.
Yep.
To the extent that like Friends of Benefit's a public token. Ours is like the type of investment activity we're doing. If we did a public token, would likely be a security or would be in more of a securities territory if we were just like,
because
buy
it's
this
about
thing because there's upside.
Yeah.
Right. So we have really toyed with a lot of different ideas on like, how do we share some ownership with our scholars, with the people who play the games, with our community? So we were exploring all kinds of different models for tokens, social token, utility token, whatever.
Yep.
But not necessarily ownership or figuring out what the split between ownership and whatever, voting rights, whatever. So for now, we just haven't done it like a public token.
So that might
like
be
YGG
basically
has like some of the others have like Avocado Guild, YGG. They have larger public exposure. Ours doesn't. We'll figure that out over the next 6 months to a year. That one's a big regulatory concern.
So that's a very deliberate. You're not going there because you want to get it right when you go there.
That's right.
And I mean, you know more than most. I think that regulatorily, it's.
We want the involvement to feel right for everyone who's involved, and then we want the regulatory to feel calm for everyone involved.
Right.
So that's been like a really deliberate process. But yeah, so from the latter part of the first 5 million, and now that we've raised the rest, like what we do is we basically see maybe not everything, but tons of like early stage gaming deals. So pre-seed, seed rounds, we see A's, we see people come back obviously later, but like we're looking at games, game studios, game tools, DAO tools, like all of that for like equity investments, while also acquiring NFTs in games. So like Altered State Machine, which has brains and several of these other different like in-game assets, we have a several $1 million bag of ASM assets, even though the game isn't like playing yet.
And is that something that you've done as just an investment choice, or is that something you've done as a collaboration with them? Like,
no, as an investment choice.
Purely
that's right.
External.
So we bought really early. We bought some of the boxes for like 0.1 ETH or whatever, which are all worth like 4 or 5 ETH now. Like, so we did some of it as like we bought in really early. We did really well, and then we came in and had one of the most fun like contents I've ever created. We're basically on a call one day. 3 months ago, we were all arguing over like one kind of thing. Okay. And one of our guys in the group, he's like, guys, I know this might not be a great time, but I think we should buy these boxes. The high-end boxes. It's got like a 27% chance we hit a rare. Okay. And the pricing is he's like showing us the upside and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, there's like announcements coming soon and whatever. And so all of us were like, hell yeah. So we spent like 600 grand just on him being like, we should do this. We should roll loot boxes. Yeah. So we literally spent 600 grand on loot boxes. And then 6 of us got on live stream with Aaron, the CEO, like the guy building Altered State Machine. So he doesn't even know what's in the boxes. Yeah. And so we're like drinking after every box we open and like everyone's taking turns. And we rolled like $2 million worth of
so
wins
the
on
upside
the 5 or 600K, right?
out,
So we're up like 4 or 5x, I think, on that.
Yeah.
But like that was a heavy market buy. And it was like just like kind of one of those degenerate things that you don't just do as by yourself. You don't just wake up on a Tuesday and be like, I'm going to buy 600 grand worth of loot boxes today. You know what I mean? Like not many people in the world can. I don't, I've never quite, you know.
Yeah.
But when it's like a group of people and we're all just like, okay, that was a sophisticated decision, even though it sounds stupid. We understand your math. We understand the upside.
Yep.
We've got the money.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So in a situation like that, walk me through a little bit. You've got 55 people at the time we're making that investment? Okay, so 55 people, you're a DAO. DAOs are a new thing. Like that's its own can of worms. Do you need just majority sign off on something like that? Or is it, how do you sort of go through we're going to do this? Yeah, we're going to do this. Let's go.
Yeah, so I would say with the 55 people, like the largest call that we're having is usually like 30. Like 30 out of 55 people will show up for like a really large like Tuesday call.
Yeah.
And, you know, one person runs the call. We have an agenda. You can jump in as needed or people talk about different things. And what several of the DAOs that I know do is, and it's what we do two things. One is emoji-based consensus, as in like thumbs up, thumbs down.
On a Discord post?
On a Discord post.
Holy, wow. So that's nuts.
Yeah. So emoji-based consensus works on plenty of things. So like if we only want to spend like 15 grand, like so 5 ETH or less, we have like a fast team.
Okay.
And if it's 5 ETH or less, we just need like 4 thumbs up. From the fast team. And there's like 8 of us out of the 55 that are on the fast team. And we can kind of make a discretionary call like, hey, I think we should throw 5 ETH into this thing. People are like, sure, go for it. So
that would essentially be
you don't want to waste everyone's time. You don't want to waste 55 people's time saying yes or no to 15.
So that's like the NFT equivalent also, or almost of the fast team being like the scalp team.
That's right.
Where you're just scalping NFTs here and there. Like,
and you have to not necessarily selling, but we're like, this is a good buy.
Okay. So you're really keeping your eye glued to
really
the market.
Low price, really like we see something that makes sense and we're like, that's a good buy.
Yeah.
So that's the fast team. On the bigger decision, this much bigger decision, we were in the call when it was recommended. And so while we were on the call, they were like, hey, this is a big one, but we've got 30 people on this call. I'm going to go throw a vote in there. Somebody just let's all thumbs up it right now.
Yeah.
And so I think we had like 21 thumbs up right away.
Yeah.
And then there's different thresholds that we kind of have written down for like, if only 12 people vote, but it's 12 yes, 0 no, maybe we do it.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But if we're spending over X, so the only token we have for Ready Player DAO is a non-transferable token.
Okay.
So I have 140,000 Ready tokens, but I can't sell them on any markets.
Yep.
So we actually do have a DApp. So we have a system where we can go in and vote based on how many tokens we have.
So it is your governance token.
Our governance token, right?
Yeah.
So we do, depending on the size of the allocation or depending on maybe if there's contention or there's like, say there's 12 yeses but 4 nos.
Yep.
Then it turns into like, okay, guys, like this is either a no or we're transitioning this to a formal vote, bigger votes, smaller votes, go for it. Because what if those 4 no's were literally our 4 biggest holders?
Right.
That could well outweigh X yeses. You know what I mean? And nobody has more than 7% of the DAO.
Okay. Is that by design or is that?
From a securities perspective, we didn't want anyone to have more than 9.
Can you explain why?
Yeah, because there's like, as a non-securities lawyer, there's like mutual fund stuff. And then there's like partnership issues when someone has 10% or more where they're like a larger partner or like there's like a different category.
Like once there's a hierarchy almost of those things. Okay.
So we're just like 9% or less for everybody involved.
Okay.
And with the raise, some people got diluted from the first round. So I think it's like 7.5% maybe is the largest stake. But yeah, so if 4 people said no, and that was 30% of the DAO, and 12 people said yes, but they were all the smallest shareholders, it could be literally net even, or the no could still be heavier than 12 yeses.
Yep.
So it kind of depends on how much money is involved, how quick we need to move.
Yeah.
How many, if there's 21 thumbs up, like, do we really need to have an on-chain vote? Like, probably not. But if it's spend $4 million and we have 21 yeses and 7 no's, it's like, oh, okay, like 7 no's. I've never seen 7 no's, right? Like literally in our group, we've never had more than probably like 4 no's. People just abstain.
Okay.
So we actually added an abstain button at some point where it's just like somewhere between I don't care or I don't know enough to like sophisticatedly say yes.
I'm sure
or no.
there's
And it's a lot easier to just click the thumbs up. It's a lot easier to just like agree. If 12 other people said yes, you're just like, sure.
But so if you can't sell ready, right? How do you interact with the upside of all these things that you're either, in some cases, not selling?
That's right.
Like where does that come through?
For now, we don't have liquidity independently at all. So it's more like thinking about it like a startup or like a venture fund where there's like, we'll get paid out later, or like whether that's through like having some public token at some point where we have X% of it, or it's
like whatever it is in the future.
We could just wait 5 years and literally just sell everything in the bag.
Yep.
And just take pro rata and it will still be more than I put in. You know what I mean?
Are you still selling stuff now? Like, will you be like, well,
from Ready Player DAO or personally?
Ready Player DAO. Yeah.
So Ready Player DAO doesn't do a ton of selling
at all.
Not much.
Okay.
It's a lot of buying, right? So we do a lot of acquiring and we do a lot of equity investing. We actually do have an NFT coming soon. That's like a Ready Player DAO NFT, like
just a commemorative thing.
Like like membership, commemorative, collectible, right? So like, because we've got all these people in our Discord and they don't have any skin in the game, or like, they don't have a Ready Player DAO
proof of fandom,
right? So it's kind of one of those. So we're gonna do an NFT soon, which again, like that could be the kind of thing that maybe someday either yields a token because you're in our community, or maybe it gets you an opportunity to be on the whitelist for something else we do, right? Like we don't really know. We have zero expectations and promises on that one. It's just like, we made a really cool thing for people who are fans of what we're doing, and we'd love to have more people involved.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And I guess that's another one where if you did have promises involved, it very quickly is securities territory because of what we talked about before, right? So it's interesting that DAOs are such a new, it feels like at least there's such a new concept of the way they operate. And I mean, emoji-based voting is like, that's such a powerful thing to be able to tap into, but also feels like you're making almost like a fickle decision. Like it doesn't mean anything to just be like, thumbs up, yes, that means that we're going to be putting 600 grand into loot boxes. Like that's a big deal. So it's really cool to hear. I know that there are a few verticals of what Ready Player DAO are interested in right now. And one of the things that is an aspect of it, as much as it's sort of got the education side of things, is working with esports teams, content creators, stuff like that. And so I'm really curious, as a content creator who is very interested in the sector, very deep in the sector, but on my channel, not in the sector, how are you approaching folks like myself, like Web2 creators, to bring them into the fold, whether it's with what you're doing or whether it's with the companies that you're investing in, how you can make connections there? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think what we've found is like the typical content creator is not incentivized to create like Web3 gaming content because either the games aren't sophisticated enough or the fandom's not there.
Yeah,
and so
it doesn't have players.
You lose the Call of Duty fans when you go play XYZ game.
Correct.
Because some of them like you for you. Most of them probably like you for Call of Duty.
Yep.
Or it's a both, right?
Yeah.
And so what we've found is like we would, because we've actually talked about this a lot. We would actually totally, it's like, here's me pitching you on stream. It's like, we would totally like partner with you, pay you, on-ramp you into that world to do that if you wanted to do that at a high level, because no one else is.
Yeah.
Like no one has really bridged or transitioned over from like, I've been a gaming streamer for years with millions of views. Here's what I'm doing, right? So we are working with Dr. Disrespect.
Yes,
on to do some stuff. That's right. And so he's the first like adult that knows what they're doing, that's done it before, and is going to come do that. We think that's super dope. We're really excited about that. But we literally like every week it's in our notes of like, if you know literal any other gaming content creators that are open to this or interested, just bring them in. So like we would like in that case, like with you or with someone would be like, here's the gaming assets for 10 different games.
Yep.
Try them all.
Hero,
figure out whatever you want.
Or
that's right.
The brains.
We'll just send you whatever to a wallet.
Yep.
Like you can film yourself as a noob trying out the games if you want. We don't really care what you do. It's just like make interesting content.
Do what you're good at. Yeah.
Yeah. And then figure out what that turns into. Like we think that would be interesting and we would do more of that. And I think the sector is going to need more of that, but I think it's
desperately.
It's the same with like Mr. Beast isn't going to do NFTs because he'll lose 10% of his viewers.
More.
Right? Like Tristan Jass isn't going to do NFTs because he's already shooting a basketball and he's got a clear audience and he's not like, he might do NFTs. Him and I have chatted about it a bit, but like the gut reaction right now is like, unless it's right, I'll lose 10% of my fans potentially.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's like, that is the biggest pull right now. Whereas I think people who embrace the NFT side of things, you might lose 10% of your fans, but it's 10% of people not paying you any money.
Yeah, and if you lose 10% and then your
revenue
10x's, yeah,
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So like if that's the trade-off, like for you, if you started streaming games and then literally every game that's coming out in the next 2 years came to you and was like, we will give you 0.25% of our company to stream, right?
Yeah.
Not Ninja, hey, here's $6 million, play Apex.
Yeah.
It's like,
equity.
No, here's 0.25% of our company and 25 grand and a bag of OG NFTs from what we're doing.
Yep.
Just play it, right? Like that probably ages really well.
Yeah.
It probably ages like really, really well.
I mean,
and
we've talked about how you were getting Doodles
right.
from working with Doodles. And
it's
it's exact same thing. It's just that it's a game now instead of just a PFP, right?
That's right. And so if you see Star Atlas raising at $1 billion valuation or Parallel at $1 billion valuation, and they look to you as like potentially you or the proverbial or you as the individual where it's like, yo, like that guy's gaming reach is technically larger than our everything reach, right? Our Twitter plus our Discords plus our whatever, like thinking about someone like Parallel or someone like these, it's like, it would be literal nothing for them to give you $500,000 and equity in their company if you had a video with 100,000 views.
Right. And
one video, you know what I mean? Like,
and that's the thing is like 100,000 views is what I would get on any video I post on my channel. Like that's the sort of the weird thing I think that a lot of these new Web3 companies they've not quite reached the point where they can start splashing that marketing cash on things like just content, or maybe
I think it's the opposite. I think they've got so I realized this last week. The way I describe what I'm investing in specifically is I'm looking at what I call consumer crypto.
Yeah. Okay.
And like I was just talking to an oil guy and I was like, look, we're not fracking or drilling. We're not shipping and logistics and we're not refining. We're gas stations. Like we're investing in gas stations. What do consumers actually touch?
Yep.
They just touch the gas station. That's it. Maybe the oil change, right? Like there's very minor use cases, but everyone in the world goes to the gas station once a week or whatever, right? So we're looking at the gas station layer. So we're looking at consumers. We need more consumers. Right now, there's no sexy gas. There's not a lot of sexy gas stations.
Damn straight.
And there's no one. And there's no one showing off the gas stations.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I actually would say.
Because maybe the gas stations are out there. The sexy gas stations.
That's what I'm saying.
If you don't know about it.
That's right. So what I'm saying is I actually think Altered State Machine or Parallel or Star Atlas actually is in a position where like, I don't know what the right number would be, but if they were like guaranteed 200,000 views on something, I don't even know the number. $500,000 cash.
It's valuable.
Plus equity.
No.
But it's not like just kind of valuable.
Right.
It's like, if they could even get Ninja to consider it and like guarantee 10 million views on something, these companies would like, Ninja, here's $10 million. You know what I mean?
It would be even more than that.
That's what I'm saying, right? It's like, here's equity, here's 10 million in cash.
Yeah.
Like, literally like, so I think Dr. Disrespect is about to tap into that market a little bit. It'll be really interesting to see what he does and hope, Ready Player DAO will help him navigate and make some introductions and see what happens. But I actually think we're in a market right now where like my content creator friends, my celebrity friends that I'm talking to, it's somewhere between how do you not work with something that's going to dump on people?
Yep, definitely.
So dumping is a concern. How do you nail the marketing and have control over the marketing so that it's not like environmental and propaganda issues, right? So you have to like, as a content creator, not just show up. You have to like help curate. So it's like you're worried about the rug. You got to get the framing right. And then how do you get aligned upside? Aligned incentives, right? And so I just think there's a lot of room there. Like we should chat about. We can chat about it more.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to because from my perspective, I like actually a good example that I know you have probably talked to at some point, or folks in Ready Play DAO have, is Mystic 7, Brandon. So good friend of ours. He's been on the pod already and is starting a channel which is like crypto gaming as the focus, right? And he's already been super into NFTs and that sort of stuff, but this is a very public-facing content production machine that he's building out to just make crypto gaming content. And it's not like educational, here's how to trade Bitcoin. It's I'm playing Axie Infinity and it's all the normal things that a content creator like myself would do. Maybe he's talking about reaching a certain point on the leaderboards and like strategies in the game, or maybe he's talking about the lore, the story of these things or whatever. And something that I've sort of seen from his excitement about all that is, wow, so like for myself, I've got hundreds of millions of views over the years on storyline videos about Call of Duty, right? And I've poured blood, sweat, and tears into understanding that world, which is not a clear world at all, but understanding that and then just being a storyteller and converting that confusion into stuff my audience can consume. Something like Parallel, which I'm invested in, there's a disclaimer, not through anything other than just buying cards. Was that what you were about to ask? Yeah. So
I bet we could change that.
I'd love to. I've been like following Parallel since like February last year when they made a Twitter account. And I love what they're doing or love what it looks like they're doing and all that sort of stuff. They have all of this incredible art, which is beautiful stuff, incredibly high quality. They're starting to build out things about how the world works, what that world is. And I'm a storyteller. That's what I do. I take this weird, obscure, obfuscated thing and I convert it and translate it into consumable stuff. And not just speaking for myself, but for folks in my position that do that in their own way, whether it's with some other product that someone needs to know how to use, maybe you're doing something with your car, you're changing the oil in your car, the brake fluid in your car. Someone needs to explain how that works. You can make brake fluid all day long, but if no one knows how to put it in the car, then it's so much less useful, right? The utility is so much reduced because of that. And so I'm excited to see folks like myself who've been in the Web2 space for so long starting to go, you know what? I've got all these expertise that I've built up over the years that might be applicable here. I think where folks like myself run into issues is that I, like you say, never want to be in a position where it's perceived that I am dumping on my audience, ever. That's like hard no for me. The reason there's no crypto on my channel is because I know for a fact that I wouldn't need to sell anything in my life. People would still think I'm dumping on my fans. Like, it's just the default assumed position, right? So it's that. It's, like you said, the environmental FUD. It's all those things. But then also, it's just knowing how to even touch the space. Like, thankfully, I'm in pretty damn deep, so I think I kind of get it in a more rounded sense. But for a lot of my content creator friends, they look at crypto, they're like, yeah, it's exciting, but it's also so confusing and it eats your life. And I'm out here making my videos on X video game. Let's call it Call of Duty just because it's close territory for me. Making videos on Call of Duty, that's taken up 16 hours of my day. How the hell do I then understand the pitfalls of crypto, right? And you need to be an ambassador for the space as much as you are for the game, because it's one of the same thing. People will see a game that has crypto relation in any way. It's got a marketplace, or it has a token of some capacity, or it's just got a collectible. And they'll be like, content on the game no longer matters. You're making content on something that supports crypto, you're evil. So through, I guess, the education side of what Ready Player DAO are doing, maybe you'll also be kind of incubating content creators to sort of
hopefully
get
so
that?
We're literally looking, like, literally we have it written in our Discord, like, if you can find a Web2 gaming content creator that wants to learn more, we will just teach them everything we can.
Right. Okay.
Like, we're just down. It's like, just bring them in, we'll teach them, we'll give them all the things they need, introduce them to literally anyone in the market, right? Like, we're down. Like, and we have that between like the 55 of us, our reach is anyone, right? When I say Parallel, it's like, oh, actually, we could introduce you right now to the core team at Parallel and discuss lore, story building, potentially being a launch partner as game reaches beta, being the first streamer doing Parallel, you know what I mean? And like, in exchange for equity, in exchange for upside, in exchange for, hey guys, if this hits 300,000 views, you're going to give me an extra $500,000. And they could be like, hell yes, please. Right? Like, please. Well, consider it done, right? Like, because reach is the biggest problem in crypto right now. So that's like, I had somebody say to me the other day, they're like, the plumbing is done. There's just no one at the house.
There's no fluid.
There's no one at the house. The plumbing is done, though. We don't need more DeFi right now. We don't need more L1s, or we don't need another Ethereum, right? Like, in all of crypto, the plumbing is there. Good rails, good plumbing, good train tracks, whatever you want to call it. We need the gas stations, and we need people to use the gas stations, right? We need them to understand the gas stations and see other people using the gas station, and you've got your fancy car at the gas station, and you're waving people in to come sit next to your, you know what I mean? Like, so we're at that part in the market. But I think either way, as we like got to wrap up so I can hit traffic in LA.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think this is super interesting. I mean, I think you guys, even like I mentioned earlier to Matt, like seeing, like looking at his YouTube channel and looking at yours and just kind of poking around, it's like there's aren't a lot of people making reasonably good content.
Oh, there's hardly any.
There's internal content, which is amazing. Kevin Rose content, you know, like there's really good, like Gary V's pod bridges the two a bit, you know, like there's a few, you know, I was on a podcast with Tiffany and Alexis Ohanian back in December. That's a really fun podcast. Like there's some content that makes sense, but it's kind of back towards its own audience.
I was exactly about to say that.
Highlighting people that are already here
it's
to other people that
already
are
know
already,
they like it.
That's right. Yeah. So I think you guys are in a position where like most of your audience is less in crypto.
By far, yes.
You know, and so if these reach them, that's awesome. Right.
Okay.
And that onboards another 10,000 people, maybe 50,000, maybe 100,000. Like, I can tell you, like last year, a stat that I realized that was important to me was how many other people I made a millionaire.
Right. Yep.
And I can point to almost 15.
Damn. Okay.
Like I made like 10 or 11 people independently millionaires from independent decisions and conversations and other things.
Yep.
And like, obviously it's partially on them, it's partially on luck, it's partially on conviction, but like I was a part of the catalyst that made at least 10 people a millionaire last year. And to me, that's way more important than whatever my number ends up being.
Right.
Like, I think that's super dope.
Yeah.
But you guys are stuck in like a mass market view where like 100,000 people could watch the video, just as many could make money as lose money, right? Because you said, well, I'm not really sure about this one parallel card at 3 ETH because it's kind of a high buy-in, but I really love this one at 0.1 ETH. But that one at 3 ETH could end up being a mega rare that goes to 50 ETH over the year. And that one at 0.1 could end up getting reprinted a bajillion times and go to 0.0001 and be the least valuable thing in the market just on you giving your personal opinion, right? Like Moonbird, somebody asked me the other day, should I buy a Moonbird at 18? I know I'm kind of late. And I was like, bro, I'm going to tell you this. If you've got 18 liquid, you should probably buy it. If it goes down a little bit, you're going to be annoyed and you're going to be mad at me, but it is what it is. If it goes up, you're going to feel like a genius. Well, it's up almost double in 48 hours since that text. And we texted this morning and he's like, I'm really glad you didn't say no. He's like, if you had cautioned me not to, I was already on the fence. I wouldn't have done it. And I would be more upset with you.
Yeah.
Right. That I didn't make that extra 18 times 3, whatever, that extra 60 grand. He's like, I'm up 70 grand because you said probably.
Right.
If you had said no, I wouldn't have, and I wouldn't be down 60 grand, but I wouldn't have made that. Right. So it's
of course
so many psyops of do it, don't do it. Here's my thoughts, whatever. So for you with gaming or with crypto content, I see that as like you want to ask good questions and have someone else say it so you can bridge it and not be like telling your fans or your community, like, do this or don't, right? Like I would say to anyone listening, like Moonbirds are at 33 ETH right now. I am not confident in the 5X from here.
Right. Yeah.
There could be.
Yeah.
I'm not confident though. It's 160 ETH floor. It's higher than punks have ever been.
Yep.
Apes are at 120 right now, right? Like when you think in terms like that, it's like, am I confident they will go up? Macro, yes. Micro, I don't know. They could totally lull next week when nesting starts.
Yep.
People could hate the nesting mechanics, right?
And when it's not the most recent new thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So people could hate the mechanics, or Yuga Land can come out and can nuke liquidity, right? Like, I know we're using words some people aren't going to know, but whatever. Like,
we can.
The point is, like, I'm not confident in a 5X, but even if I was, it's now telling someone to spend 100 grand on one independent asset.
Yep.
So it's really hard.
It's a different conversation.
So hard, right?
So as we have to wrap up here, the last thing I want to ask, you can give a quick answer on this if you feel so inclined, is of all the things we've talked about, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's content creators, whether it's what you're doing, whether it's legal work that you're doing or strategy or whatever, what's missing? What do you need built? What do you need someone to make? What do you need a creator to do? Maybe it's just that you wish there was more organic gaming content being made. What's missing and what can someone do about that? Someone like myself or just an entrepreneur?
A personal answer is that I'm probably satisfied-ish in this market. As a consumer, as an investor, as a sophisticated individual in the market. Like I feel like I just already have a deluge of content and a deluge of the things I do. And we're kind of in an up only market and I'm like participating. So as a like insider participant, I don't have any desperate needs. I would say though that like the more philosophical thought processes around like tokenizing real estate, tokenizing cars, tokenizing the real world. Like I think that stuff's interesting. I think we also just need more consumers. So from like a market need perspective, we need more things that operate on crypto or operate with crypto, but aren't necessarily looking or feeling like crypto.
Yeah, like
I think we're going to see more of that. Like I invested in a company recently that like is basically building super fan clubs for musicians that are like token gated and like have access to early ticketing and access to early things. And like it is an NFT, but it's not like heavily crypto. It's like a beautiful UX UI built by an amazing engineering team out of the Bay that built Cash App and DoorDash and whatever, right?
Yep.
And like, it's just good. So basically, we need more really, really good designers to come in and design beautiful things. We need more consumers. And the only way to get more consumers is going to be more people like yourself and others coming over the bridge and then realizing that the bridge didn't actually exist. They just kind of jumped and then building the bridge back, right? So like I've thought about doing podcasts or I've thought about doing other content, but I don't have any specific reach into any specific pocket. So like I think I would make good content. I just don't know who would listen per se.
That's fair.
So like this is great, right? Like I'm happy to chat with you guys. Like I would go on Impulsive. I would go on Joe Rogan. I would go on some of the ones that are already just
because they have an audience.
Open.
It's established.
They have massive audience and they're doing interesting things. And their clientele, their fans are like genuinely just open-minded in general. I think most people are open-minded in general. Crypto just has this negative edge. So we just have to keep working on the edge.
On that.
You know? So
cool.
We need more consumers.
More consumers.
That's
there
right.
There you go. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, dude.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.
And we'll have to have you back sometime.